Nephilim hybrid, but it won't be the same as direct generation, but it'll be, they'll believe the lie that they shall not die and have eternal life, or, have extended life. Sally, are you still there?
Yes.
If you need to go, please feel free to, because I know that you're on a work schedule. Do you have anything that you'd like to add before you leave or go off? Because I'm going to ask the girls a couple other things and before we bring this to a close. But you've been patiently listening. Any thoughts or comments that you have as you've been listening?
I think the controversy itself that's over the fact that can fallen angels have sex with women today, does that happen today, really denies the times that we're in and a lack of understanding of God's eternal purpose, of the vision of the times, the end times we're in, and the whole scope of history. So the fact that we all are having this broadcast again to clarify this speaks to this whole opposition that there is. It's a satanic opposition to blind the church in where we are, because it is a fact. Fallen angels today are copulating with women, and they did that with us. As Barbara, I appreciate your comment, because I think you hit the nail on the head, that they did start with the bloodline as, like you said, as a control group, and because they did have in mind to populate, that's their whole plan, is to do away with man, because they absolutely hate man. They hate the fact that Jesus Christ became man and that man has the place that we have. And so this is Satan's attempt to destroy man. And so how is he going to do that? Through contamination. And it is in the days of Noah, as in Genesis 6. So it's pretty simple. And I think that Doug did not implant any of this in my head. In fact, one of the things it was a struggle, because I could see, I knew it was going on. The fact that I had given birth.
Is everybody still here?
Yeah.
The alarm system at 530 9th Street West is in alarm.
We're having something interesting break-in here. Is everybody still online?
Yes.
James and the girls, all you all here?
Yeah,
still here.
That's very interesting. Something is cut in on our the cell phone, but continue on. We're back.
Okay. So the I kind of got sidetracked.
Well, when you do, you're just talking about it's a fact that as it was in the days of Noah, it's happening today.
Right. Yeah, right. And this was nothing that Doug implanted. In fact, it took me a while to really get the courage to actually say what had happened, because I told him that I'd given birth, and he kept wanting to know who the father was, implying that it was a human father. And I kept thinking, he wants me to tell him it's human, but I can't tell him that because that's not the truth. And so it really took me a while to get up the courage to say, this is a non-human. It's a fallen angel. And it is, and that this is a Nephilim creature.
Yeah, well, when you said fallen angel, you mean the fallen angel was like the source, but the creature you gave birth to was not a fallen angel, but a hybrid.
Right. But the father of the child was not human.
There you go. Thank you.
So it took me a while to get that, because, as Susan brought out, or the others, is because it's not believable. And if there's concern, is this person in front of me who's a counselor isn't going to believe me, then us as multiples, we like to try to comply and give them something that they're going to believe.
Okay, so I'm the one that's sitting in front of you. So at the time, you were concerned that I, as the one counseling you, would even believe what you were going to say.
Right. And in fact, I thought that you wanted me to tell you the answer that this was a human father, and I couldn't do that. If I did that, I would have denied the truth, and I knew that I was being disobedient to the Lord Jesus, to my God, that would bring forth the truth of really, really what happened to me. So I couldn't deny that truth. So I chose to be obedient to the truth and bring it out and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
And so you didn't react or anything. You just, you just kind of, I don't know what you did with it, but.
Well, I tell you what I did with it. I tried to find out what this meant in terms of trauma and help you work through the trauma, and I didn't go on the air on any bite show and talk about Nephilim mothers. I just looked at this in the context of every other traumatic memory you were dealing with that caused dissociation. My goal was to see you resolve from the trauma, and so I believed it because I already had an understanding of the true interpretation of Genesis 6. Yeah. So as far as the biblical framework, I had no problem, but I just treated it as a part of a counseling setting to help you work through the trauma.
Right. In fact, we thought it was more of not a common thing that happened. We thought, it happens to maybe a select few. And so, but yet I knew at the time that there was a Nephilim project, that the cult was going to, this was Satan's master plan. He was going to destroy the earth through his army, through all the fallen angels, through the dominion, and copulating with women as in Genesis 6. And that was his plan.
Well, thank you. That's really clear, and this is what the whole focus is. I have other things down there. We could talk about super soldiers. We could talk about backbreeding. This really has nothing to do with the Genesis 6 per se, in terms of what we have recorded in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. But I would like to just each one just give any closing thoughts. So thank you, Sally, because I know you're here out of your busy schedule. You're welcome to stay if you need to go. I understand. Okay. But each one, Barbara, Connie, any closing thoughts as to, anything we've talked about, and especially what this means to our generation? I mean, this is a big thing. I mean, this is upon us. This is in our culture. I don't know how many of them are out there, but we know Satan's goal is to create as many hybrids as he can before he has to face Jesus Christ on the battlefield of Armageddon. So each one that we've talked, just give your closing thoughts on anything you think is important you'd like to contribute. So who wants to go first?
Well, I guess following up on what Sally said.
This is Barbara.
Yeah. Just in terms of for a person who would be inclined not to believe that this is the truth, I just think of, I can only give testimony to myself, but how much it's altered my life to accept that this is the truth. I don't fit into society anywhere. I have an entire life that I can't go to work and talk about. I can't even go to work and say, oh, wow, I was raped when I was 13. It's something that sets me apart from the majority of the world, except for the few people that I've come in contact with over the years that share the same truth. So it's not like you gain anything by being honest about what happened. You lose everything. You lose a connection to the rest of the world. And it's also true that this is done for Satan to replace man. I don't, the thought of the end being everybody gets a shot in the arm and becomes a hybrid of sorts is news to me, honestly. I think his ultimate plan is not to embrace mankind into the scheme to overthrow God. It's to replace mankind with creatures that are of his own making and of the making of the demons that follow him. And that is going to be the new earth in Satan's eyes. And all of his pompousness, thinking that he's going to create a race of beings that's going to replace mankind.
Yeah.
And
I think that is I think you hit it right on the head. I agree. Yeah. Well, that's just really excellent. Who else would like to come in with before I call on you? We got a few more that haven't brought your closing thoughts or statements.
Hi. First of all, I just want to apologize for when I was trying to share earlier this evening that I wasn't very clear in being able to talk and answer questions. Just kind of where I'm at right now with doing counseling and stuff today. So for me, talking about this has always been very, very difficult. I still find myself being very uncomfortable with it when it comes up. It's just one of those things that I just don't like to talk about much. And I would have to say I'm still in the process of dealing with a lot of the trauma around it and getting myself totally excavated from the damage that was done just by going through the event of producing these sons. And I do think it's like way bigger than people know about. I mean, we're a small company of people kind of on the front lines going public with this, but this is huge. I mean, there's thousands of mothers out there that if they heard this, they would say, that's me. That describes my life. And it can be validation for them. So I think for me, that's one of the reasons I would want to go public, not because I have a need to talk about it, because those that know me know that I get sick when I think about having to even talk about it. So it's more to give validation to those who have gone through these things and have never felt like there would be anybody that would believe them, to know that you are not a liar, that there are people out there that will hear your stories, and that it's okay to come forward, and that the church, I mean, just for the church to be awakened, to not be asleep, so that when they have people in their congregations that are fragmented, that they're creating a safe environment for these people to begin to come forward. And even if you're having trouble believing what you're hearing, don't try to analyze it and pick it apart. Just think of this as a human being that's sitting in front of you, because even if they were lying, and they're not, but even if they were, then just have compassion and say, well, my gosh, what happened to this person that they'd even be telling a story like this in the first place? So for me, my desire is to be a voice for those who have not yet found their voice.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. Thank you. And I think that's important, the very fact that this is not easy. This is the last thing you'd want to do is report this kind of event. It really just validates the extreme nature and the fact that the adversary is going to do all that he can to keep this hidden. He wants the mankind to believe that these hybrid offspring are basically demons. No, they're not. They are not demons. They are hybrids.
Right.
And if you say all alien phenomenon is demonic manifestation, you're a part of the deception. If you say all UFOs are all demonic manifestations, some of them certainly are. Those glowing orbs, those indistinct light bodies, yes. But there are real craft that these entities are piloting. And so when the disclosure comes, and all these so-called theologians who say that all the UFO alien phenomenon is basically just a demonic manifestation, that's only part of the story. Right. What happens when you rebuke a physical entity or physical craft? It's not going to go anywhere. So if you are one of those people out there who say all UFO phenomenon, all alien phenomenon is demonic, you're going to be in a place where you're going to be blushing because that's only part of the truth. Those aliens are not aliens; they are real hybrids. Read Dr. David Jacobs' work on the threat and the interviews that he's had with people. He refers to them as aliens. They are not aliens. There are actual hybrids in existence that people are reporting as aliens. And so this is very important that this generation understands this, that this is very big, this is the end game, and we have very little time left.
Yes.
So anyone else want to comment? I said there's Susan, Julie. Thank you, Connie. Susan, Julie, and Jennifer Diane. There's three more that have not had any concluding thoughts or comments.
I do, Doug. This is Susanna. And I was just looking back in Genesis, and I think the reason I am willing to come on and talk about this is a part of my life is because of when you read on in Genesis and why the Lord brought the judgment that he did through the flood. He saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. He was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The earth was full of violence, and the fact that there is this Nephilim outbreak again in this time is evidence of the times that we're in.
Yes.
And the condition of the world and the fullness of the iniquity. And as that fullness of iniquity is coming forth, we know that the time of the Lord is drawing near. And so this is just evidence of where we are at.
Yes. Amen.
That's why I am speaking out to those who don't know the Lord. And as you said, our time is short. And so this gives testimony to that.
Yes. Okay, Julianne, Diane, which one? Who's next? There's lots of space there. Somebody needs to speak.
I don't really have anything to add.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Julie. How about you, Jennifer Dunn? Do you have anything that would represent any closing thoughts that you would like to add to in terms of as you've been listening to the other ladies speak? She must have. She probably had to get off the air. Maybe it was because it's late. She has to get up early and go to work in the morning. So I would just say, with reference to Jennifer Diane, since she's not here with us, that the level of fragmentation in this young lady is as max as anyone I've ever seen in this particular category of trauma. So I just commend all the ladies for being willing to do this. I know this is never easy. This was not something that I personally look forward to, but I wanted to address those out there that are trying to come up with some of the kind of explanation of how these hybrids are going to come into existence. I would like to just close with this, and I'm going to just ask James to give us any thoughts, because you've been working with Barbara and others for a number of years, James. So any concluding thoughts that you might have, I welcome that, but I would like to just make two distinctions here. We have the first generation offspring, as the days of Noah, hybrids. These are the prototypes. Now, the rest of mankind that's going to be deceived, there's all kinds of GRIMS technology, as Tom Horn has done so well in his Forbidden Gates, that's going to make it possible for mankind to make the transition to that which will ultimately result in the mark of the beast, which will most likely be the introduction of some kind of nanobot, biological nanobot that will transform their DNA, which will, they are now beyond human category, and they will become, in a representative way, the closest proximity to the Nephilim, and therefore all those who receive this mark will be damned. That's what the Scripture teaches. So there's two categories. We have the human race that are not Nephilim, that are going to be brought into this transformation. This is the transhumanism, singularity, omega point. But we have the prototypes, which are the avant-garde. This is the quintessential of Satan's end game. This is, that can only be described as the direct fulfillment of Jesus' prophecy in Matthew 24:37 and Luke 17:26. And I have a concluding statement here, but I want James. You have any thoughts? You've been listening, and as a counselor and someone who has walked a very long and costly journey along with your dear wife, Marilyn, with Barbara, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to add, having listened?
Well, as you invited me to speak, the thought that formed for me was a double one. One, just to say, as a student of the Word, as a preacher for 25, 30 years and so on, I just lend my testimony to the just how much what we're experiencing, and that in our generation and what these ladies are bringing forward, how much that just simply validates the Scriptures and makes sense. It just makes perfect sense that this is the way these Scriptures will be fulfilled. I mean, this is what they have said. This is the way it's coming down. Beyond that, I'd just like to say that my own relationship with Barbara primarily, but all these others who have spoken, I know them personally, and I know even some others who are Nephilim mothers. And just speaking for myself in terms of my relationship with them, I am absolutely convinced of the authenticity of their testimony because of the context of their lives and my relationship with them. And so to who all are listening, here's one guy who knows these ladies, and some of them better than others, but can say these are authentic testimonies. These women have no reason to make this stuff up and to go public with what they know to be untruths, but just the opposite. They have every reason to keep this quiet, either for shame of it all or for threat of what will come upon their heads by the very sons they've borne when they do these, when they give this testimony. So it's a brave and courageous thing. It's an authentic thing. It's real. And I thank the Lord for the privilege of knowing each of them. So that is my thought, Doug. Thanks.
Well, thank you, James, and I appreciate James' commitment to working. I first met James and his dear wife, Marilyn, a number of years ago, back in the latter 90s when you brought Barbara to me in Tulsa. And at that particular time, we got to know you and to connect with you more. And it's been a real privilege to be able to work with you and see you just grow in your understanding and ability to help people like Barbara. And so I am very grateful you're there. I'm very grateful for Marilyn and her close support, and she's witnessed these things. Marilyn, are you there, Marilyn?
I am here, Doug.
Do you have anything that you would like to add? Because you're Pastor James is your husband, and you have been by his side through hundreds and thousands of hours of counseling. You know Barbara. Are there any closing comments or thoughts that you would like to add from who you are in this journey, not only as a companion of James, but as a close friend and sister of Barbara?
I think the thought that overwhelms me is just I'm just flooded as I'm listening to everyone's story with the overwhelmingness of God's sovereignty in the way He has brought about this revelation and made provision for the testimony to come forward and to be believed.
I, with James, am so grateful for you, Doug, and your assembly there, Morning Star Testimony Church, and for the way you have pioneered this work, for Sally being so brave to report to you initially, and the way you have continued on this incredible learning curve as the whole thing got bigger and more overwhelming. And had you not gone before, that you wouldn't have been there in answer to my extensive fasting and prayer when we had exhausted every source of help in wondering where to go next and how to help next. Barbara, when she was hearing voices and cutting and we didn't know what more, where else to go. And then perhaps the listening audience would have no clue, but the way you came to know Jennifer Diane is because she happens to be my niece. And God did that. That's all I can say. It's like the story of Joseph, or well, maybe a better story about God's sovereignty would be the story of Esther. I often think, who would have ever dreamt that Haman, who was being so irritated by Mordecai and thought he had the perfect plan to get rid of Mordecai and all the Jews, whoever would have thought that Mordecai's niece was the queen? And I often think about that when I think about my precious niece, Jennifer Diane. Who would have thought in all the years we were just loving and seeking to make disciples and came to love Barbara and others, that the story would go round and here my own precious niece had been abducted right at birth from her mother, my sister-in-law. Not abducted by aliens, no, but by humans in a hospital. But I know. Well, she has told that on the air. So anyway, it's an incredible story of God's writing. So that's what's going through my mind, and I give Him the glory, and with James affirm the authenticity of all of these testimonies.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Marilyn. Lori and Dan, do you have any concluding thoughts you'd like to add as a witness to these people, having known them and watched their journey and knowing they're not speaking from any specific altars, but this is coming out of the person that you've known and walked with for years? Any closing comments or thoughts, Lori, and then you, Dan?
Well, I just appreciate being a part of this, and I feel pretty, I don't feel qualified to say too much, because I have been an outsider, a witness of this, not a participant, But as I watch my sisters be so brave and to be willing to go on a worldwide internet program to speak this for the sake of the Lord, that's where my respect really grows for each one of them. Mm-hmm. And then for your courage too, Doug, knowing that just from personal experience, what we've gone through as a result of going public, the conflict, the unseen conflict has increased exponentially. So I just really admire you for being willing to do this. And I just pray that the Lord will use it however, because at the beginning I wondered, well, now what is this about? Why are we doing this? And because it's not like we have a need to be, I know these ladies do not have a need to be affirmed. They don't have a need to hear people say, I believe you, because they know what they went through. And the rest of us who have never experienced it, nor will we ever, we trust them, we take their word for it, we watch them abreact in the counseling session. We believe them. But whatever the rest of the world's going to do with this, and the rest of the Christian world, that's between them and the Lord. And I would just pray that there somehow God would use this show and the others that the ladies and you have done to awaken, that the Lord would use it to awaken the church to the days in which we live, and to open the eyes of the heart. That's my prayer, that the Lord would give the people listening a spirit of wisdom and of revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know years ago when we first began just understanding that Satan had an organized plan, an organized, diabolical purpose set against our God. I had known that Satan was, he was a creature, but he wasn't anything I gave any thought to. He wasn't relevant to my life, and I was suckered. And I was blinded to the fact that he was very much a part of every Christian's life. And so I think if this kind of a show will make people question to the point of seeking the Lord and searching the Scriptures to see that these things are so, that it will be worth it.
Yes.
To prepare a few. We know there's a remnant that will believe, that will take this before the Lord and really be shaken up and stirred up, and perhaps their direction will change. And they will be more earnest about seeking the Lord, about giving their lives entirely to see the Lord have his place in their hearts and in the hearts of others. So that's my prayer, and I do love all these sisters and just greatly admire them for what they've endured.
Yes.
And I love the Lord as he has delivered them and as he's bringing them through into life and into wholeness. And so my spiritual hat goes off to them.
Yes, I agree, and thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate that. Dan, do you have any closing thoughts or comments?
Well, Doug, I was just you spoke about the reason why all this came out in the first place is we have all tried to move along a route of coming to that place of wholeness and maturity with reference to just the normal Christian life as is to be lived, and so these memories have come up as we've sought to deal with the issues in our life and to deal with that which would represent a hindrance to our knowing the Lord in fullness. So, and I've sat in sessions with others over the years, and I've seen the anguish that has produced the memories, the anguish of having to face the reality of a past. And then I've also seen that which represents a more solid person afterwards, as the issues are dealt with, as the memories are regathered together and consolidated, and the person is able to take their life back. And as that happens, then there has been not only individually but a corporate consolidation with reference to what it means to be moving closer to the representation of John 17, ironically, individually as we've been so shattered, and then as a corporate company seeking to live in the good of that. And the other aspect that was kind of why are we having the different occasions for the Bite Show, this for the girls tonight as far as their history of having been mothers to this, and at other times when we talked about the dissociation, I just think about those who represented the sons of Issachar in the Old Testament. And it was at times when they knew the time and they were able to tell Israel, give Israel instruction as far as what to do. And I feel like this is so much it. We are in the final generation. Whenever the great revealing happens with reference to the aliens coming on the scene, even the Christians who have no frame of reference with reference to what's going on, and even the Christians who say that UFOs are just delusional, and any manifestation to those who are abducted is all delusional, and it's not reality in any way, nothing physical, no hardware. They're going to have no frame of reference and nowhere to go. There are no aliens. They are the hybrid Nephilim who will masquerade as aliens. And whenever this happens, if those in the church have not been taught, have not been instructed, have not been enlightened of where we are in this time, there will be no place to go but to accept the fact that they must be aliens. A great deception.
Yes.
So, I mean, I agree with what's already been said. The absolute need to know that we're in the last time and to know what that means.
Mm-hmm. And would you, knowing these people for many years that are reporting as Nephilim mothers, do you consider them, as Paul states here in 2 Corinthians 13, verse 1, this is the third time I'm coming to you, Paul says, and quoting Deuteronomy 19, I think 15, every fact, every matter is to be confirmed by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Do you consider the people that you know and that we haven't included here tonight have conceived and given birth to Nephilim, do you consider these as biblically qualified to be biblically defined witnesses?
Oh, I do, certainly. And even from my perspective, I'm not a counselor, but I've sat in with you and with others and times in the way of prayer ministry. And so I've heard the testimony from the different ones, independent of anyone else, and without any kind of coaxing in any way whatsoever. And it's just like a court of law. If you come in with circumstantial evidence, it's hard to convict a case. You need the testimony. And I believe we clearly have the testimony of so many here tonight and those others that we've come across with reference to what's happened to them. Clearly, it is the testimony that represents a biblical aspect.
Yes. And I would just like to conclude that this is a representation of witnesses that I have worked with. These witnesses have spoken. For any of you out there to say that these are not, they don't meet the biblical criteria for witnesses, you're not the authority. The authority is in a witness. And I'm not a witness, but I know the authenticity and the character of those who are witnesses, and they have spoken what they have seen and heard, and with great courage and cost that they have brought this to light. So the witnesses have given firsthand evidence that we are in the place that is described as the last days, described by Jesus, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the return of the Son of Man. And I would like to just put in one little parenthesis here. When we first did our first interview on Nephilim mothers, that same night, Connie got a call at 2 to 3 in the morning, and on the caller ID it had my name. When she picked up the phone, it was Prince Philip, and was very upset over what she had reported. There was a forced abduction. She paid a great price. Others here, I know, have paid a great price through abduction of reporting this. And so I have seen the cost and had to deal with the fallout in helping these people work through the trauma of having reported. So this is no small thing. This is not notoriety. This cost to come public with this. And the adversary absolutely fears that which is hidden in the darkness to be brought out in the light. And I'm going to leave this with our listeners. Jesus says, not only as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be the return of the Son of Man. But in that same context, he says, and if those days had not been shortened leading up to his coming, no flesh would survive. So that's Satan's goal. It's just so corrupt, just like in the days of Noah, to wipe out the recipients of God's promise, to make it impossible for people to be saved by taking on this mark or wiping out the human race by creating a hybrid. This was his goal in Genesis 6, and now it's going to be repeated as the final end game, Luciferian end game, that will culminate in Satan having his army on the field to wage war against God, as we see in Revelation 16, verses 11 and 12 through 16, Revelation 17, 12 through 14, and Revelation 19:19. We see there's a final war that Satan is preparing to thwart and to seek to defeat God at the end. He's dead serious, and we need to be aware of this. Now, God is sovereign, and I thank God for this opportunity that God has given us, and a special thanks to Georgia. I appreciate your prayers for her, that she would, the Lord would restore her And so for those that are listening for the first time, if you go to the Bite Show and under the guest section, my name, Douglas Riggs, is there. The page will open up, and the files we've been doing will be listed on there. So we just ask God's blessing and protection on all of the listeners. We commit what has been presented to our Lord and pray His blessing, and He would use it in a way that would help, especially equip the church to be aware, as Dan referred to, as sons of Issachar, who were knowers of the time, that they could tell Israel what to do. And so in whatever way we represent those that are knowers of the time, we do commit this to you and pray that God would use it. So we just say good night to everybody, and look forward to presenting other shows to you in the future. Good night, everybody.